the presentation slides?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great.
Okay. If I go ahead and call our meeting to order, and this is the 2020 City of Snoqualmie Audit and Exit Conference with the Office of Washington State Auditors. And I will turn it over to who is going to kick this off.
Oh, it will be Alex Berry. He will be joining us shortly.
Great.
So I actually just talked to Alex, and he something has come up, and he has asked that I start our meeting without him. So sorry about that. Okay, so we'll go ahead and shall we do introductions?
Yes, it'd be great.
Okay. So my name is Kim Nguyen, and I am with the State Auditor's Office. I was a supervisor for this audit, and Alex Barrett, who will be joining me, was the audit manager. Igor Shizlov at one point was the AIC, but he did transition off the audit. And so it was primarily myself and some assisting auditors who performed the audit work. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to the city to just do some introductions.
Mr. Boutte, do you want to start?
Sure, I'll take this opportunity to introduce the city. So we've got the Mayor Ross, here with us today, as well as a number of council members. We have Council Member Jim Mayhew, the Council Member Ethan Benson, Council Member Joe Johnson, Council Member Brian Holloway, and that looks about it. We also have our interim finance director with us here today as well, Jen Ferguson.
Councilmember Lassay is here too.
Councilmember Lassay is also here. Thank you for that.
And Christensen as well.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any other council members I may have forgotten?
Councilmember Watton is also on, I see.
Okay, perfect. We also have our city administrator with us today as well, Mike Sauerwein. And then we have probably some of our important people inside the finance department participating in this discussion here today as well. That includes our financial services manager, Jerry Knutson, as well as our accountant, Kyla Henderson. So with that said, we appreciate what you've done for us, Kim, over the past couple months, and feel free to take it away.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. And before we get into our audit results, we just want to talk about our office as far as our mission. Our mission is to increase trust in government. We perform independent, transparent examinations, and one of our goals is to improve efficiency and effectiveness of government. The city receives an audit annually, so this is not something that's new, and so we're really glad to continue building that relationship with the city as we do these annual audits. Next, we'll transition to our accountability audit. And so we conducted an accountability audit that covered the period of January 1st, 2020 through December 31st, 2020. The purpose of our accountability audit is to ascertain whether the city complied with state laws, regulations, contracts, grant agreements, and its own policies and procedures. Additionally, these audits also look at whether, in general, the city has adequate controls to safeguard public funds. Under the heading Results in Brief, you'll see our audit found the city's operations complied in all material respects with applicable state laws, regulations, and its own policies, and provided adequate controls over the safeguarding of public resources. In selecting the specific areas for further review, we conducted a number of planning procedures that incorporated reviewing council meeting minutes, analyzing trends in financial changes, conducting risk assessments with key staff and council. We utilize a risk-based approach in selecting areas for further testing. Based on those planning procedures, we've included on the slide are the areas that we identified for further testing in our audit. So some of the areas that we looked at were related to credit cards, primarily just determining whether the city complied with state requirements as well as its own policies. For utility billings, we looked at the city's processes and policies related to utility billing and specifically adjustments. An area that's of high focus right now, especially with a lot of our entities working remotely, is related to the review of security policy, IT security policies. We looked at specifically backup and recovery, patch management, and user access. In our audits annually, we always are reviewing open public meetings as well as financial condition. Okay, any questions about the areas that we reviewed? Overall, very clean accountability audit. We shared any recommendations with management if we had any areas where we thought there could be improvement. And so we found the city to be very responsive to any recommendations that we had. And so we're really pleased when our entities are so responsive. Okay, it does not look like we have any questions. So next we'll turn to the financial statement audit. Okay, and so we also conducted a financial statement audit for that same period. The objective of a financial statement audit is to issue an opinion as to whether the information included in the financial statements can be relied upon to make decisions. We're pleased to report that we're issuing an unmodified clean audit opinion on the city's financial statements. So essentially the city is receiving a clean audit opinion, and this is the opinion you want to receive, and it does provide assurance that the financial statements are both stated fairly and are materially correct. It's also important to note that the city has elected to prepare its financial statements using the cash basis method of reporting. So this method of reporting is utilized by the majority of our local governments across the state, and it's more simplified reporting requirements. It's allowable for use. However, we do have to include that dual adverse opinion, just essentially to say that the city chose not to report under US GAAP, which is a more comprehensive reporting model. Additionally, it's important to note that our audits are conducted in accordance with government auditing standards. Those standards are also require that we gain an understanding of the city's process for preparing the financial statements. Should we identify a weakness or concern with that process that could or did result in significant errors in the financial statements, we would be required to bring those to your attention, and as well as including the audit information in our audit report. So we're pleased to report that we did not identify any concerns in the city's processes that would be required to be brought to your attention or included in our audit report. Auditing standards also require us to consider compliance with applicable laws, regulations, contracts, and grant agreements where non-compliance can affect the fair presentation of the financial statements. We noted no instances of non-compliance that were material to the financial statements. Professional audit standards also require that we share with you whether there were any uncorrected misstatements that remain in the audited financial statements. We've included in your packet a listing of the one item, but please note that we have concluded that that item is both immaterial or small in nature and does not affect the overall opinion being issued. Additionally, the item has been shared with city management, and we're confident that they will work on correcting the item when preparing future financial statements. Okay, and then we're also required to note whether there were any material or large misstatements that were identified and subsequently corrected by management. We're pleased to report that there were no material misstatements identified during the course of our audit. Do we have any questions regarding the financial statement audit? Okay, does not appear so. So we'll go ahead and move towards closing remarks. We expect audit costs will be in alignment with our original estimate. And we expect the next audit will be November of 2022. We expect the scope to include accountability for public resources as well as financial statement. We've included an estimated cost for the next audit, and it's been provided in the exit packet that was provided to you prior to tonight's meeting. We expect the city's audit reports to be published within the next 1 to 2 weeks. There is an option where you can sign up to receive notifications from our office to alert you as far as when the reports will be issued, and you can also receive to get additional alerts from our office. We'll also be providing an audit survey, and so we love to receive feedback about what we did well or what we could have done better. We're always thinking about how we can better serve your needs. And lastly, we want to take the time to thank both Jerry, Kyla, and Drew for all of their help, as well as any city staff with all the help and cooperation throughout this audit process. So it really helps to really conduct a really efficient audit. So we're really appreciative of all of their efforts. Any other questions?
I don't see any questions. I'd like to thank you for your thorough audit, and it's great to have no findings and unmodified audit. I think this is many years in a row now that we have not had any recommendations, and it's our finance group that has done really well. So we appreciate all the efforts they have been doing. So especially during COVID and everything else. So
Exactly. Yes, I wanted to take the time just to reiterate. No findings, no management letters. That's an excellent thing, especially in light of the pandemic. Our audit, similar to last year, has been conducted remotely. It can present challenges for our entities. We know a lot of our entities have been affected by the Great Resignation. So we've seen staff turnover, and we certainly understand the importance of your human capital. And so we're really appreciative of all their help, because it's like they have a whole other job besides our audit. So thank you so much.
Council members, do we have any comments? Let's see, Mayor Pro Tem Mayhew.
Yeah, just reiterate the thanks to the State Auditor's Office for getting this audit done and for tonight's report. Just one question. I know, I have a feeling I know the answer, but I just wanted to ask, this is quite a long time after the year end.
Yep.
If there had been something for you to report to us, we would have had a whole nother year of that matter still ongoing. So, timeliness of audits is an important feature. And so I just wanted to ask what your sense is of the timeliness of the next audit, and what you think the timing is likely to be. And I'm guessing that part of the problem, of course, is COVID and having to work through that whole challenge of doing audits remotely and so forth. But I just wanted to ask if you have any sense of whether the next audit might be, sooner than a year from now, so that it's closer in timing to the year being audited.
Yes, that's a great question as far as timeliness of when our audits are performed. And yes, of course, we're performing audits a year after the fact. And it's really one of those challenges where we do have our audits are based on audit cycles. Certain entity types have very firm deadlines, and therefore they take a little bit higher priority just to make sure that they are meeting those deadlines. But of course, we do weigh the benefits of having a sooner audit. I think typically this audit occurs in November. We're always happy to come in a little bit sooner too. If the city is ready to have their audit sooner, we're most certainly happy to work with the city to be able to get those audits done sooner as well. As far as any audit recommendations that kind of come up as a result of our audits, we do take into consideration the timing of any recommendations in our follow-up. Of course, we want to be, we're very reasonable in the fact that if we recently audited an area, we're cognizant of that there might be some time that needs to be taken to really fully address any issues that might have been identified. So we do take that into consideration as well.
Great, understand, and thanks for the answer. And to be honest, I'm less worried about the audit cycles and more in my role as a council member.
Sure.
If there were to be something that needed to be addressed at the city, it would be better to know sooner than over a year later. So anything you can do to push those forward, and I know that that's something that you need to work with the city on, but anything you can do to shorten the time period between when our year ends and when we can get audit results, I think we'd all appreciate. So thank you.
Yeah, yes, and we'll definitely connect with city management and make sure we firmly believe that we want to maintain that communication throughout the year, not just when we're in the audit. So should the city management feel like they would like to have those audits earlier, we're definitely willing to have those conversations and consider what options we have to get those bodies onto this audit. So that's something we can definitely think about going into the next audit.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, I think we are, Councilor Mayhew.
Sorry, Mayor, I did want to I think you made this comment, but I really think from a council member's perspective, just tremendous thanks to the city staff, everyone that leads into this audit, certainly our financial staff, but everyone else as well. A clean audit like this is by no means something that happens without a lot of effort. There are audits with findings. There are even audits that have to report at other cities. Mind you, I'm not talking about Snoqualmie. So the kind of clean audit that we've just received is, it's not a foregone conclusion. It's a result of a lot of hard work, and staff, certainly from my perspective as a council member, thank you for a fantastic job, and keep up the great work. Thank you.
Councilor Vincent?
Yeah, forgive my lack of education on this, but I do have a question. I certainly don't want it to sound offensive or anything like that, but in reading over the notes about the audit, it did make it clear that they're not checking at all levels for absolutely everything. And so I was left wondering, and again, this is the first one of these I've ever seen, so this is not a judgment on this or anything. It's just a standard, it's just a question that occurred to me, is what level of fraud or malfeasance or anything like that could get by an audit at this level. Obviously, if you're sifting sand with a flour sifter, you're going to catch the chunks, and some dust is going to get through. Do we have anything to worry about here? In that we don't I mean, one of the things I saw is you're not looking at every transaction that's made or anything, that sort of thing. And to Council Member Mayhew's point, I want to make sure that that we're being responsible with oversight and that sort of thing. Is there anything of significance that we need to worry about?
Oh, great question. I really appreciate that you read the report thoroughly. Sometimes we don't get that, so that's excellent. Yes, exactly. We do not provide absolute assurance. Our audits do take into consideration fraud. We're always attuned to fraud during the performance of our audit. But that being said, yes, we don't look at every single transaction. So the level of assurance that we provide is reasonable assurance that you do not have any material errors within your financial statements. Again, with accountability, we're primarily looking, with accountability, we're primarily looking at those areas that are within our purview in the current year. So we can't speak to any areas that are not in our purview in that current year. But as far as where we're seeing with fraud, we didn't identify any fraud in the course of our audit.
Yes, and I certainly hope that I wasn't sounding like I was casting aspersions or anything like that. I just want to make sure that that we're doing our job in oversight. Obviously, you can't look at every purchase or and I wouldn't expect you to. But I guess that's on us and department heads and that sort of thing to keep an eye on that kind of thing. But it is as Councilor Mayhew said, and as Mayor Ross said, it's great to get a clean bill of health from you guys.
Yes, great. Yes, certainly. And yes, fraud is something we all take seriously. And so we think that's great that council is very cognizant of fraud risks and exercising oversight. And that's usually where in combination with management, that's where a lot of our, I think a lot of our audits, frauds are identified by our entities, but of course we do stay attuned to any fraud risk during our audits.
Any other comments? Drew Boutte.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Just based on earlier what I heard, Kim.
We do have a text chain going on the screen, just so you know.
All right, thank you. Kim, so we can see your text box.
Oh, sorry about that. Oh, sorry. Sorry, just a message from Alex. His audio isn't working, so I know he wanted to share his input. So sorry about that. Thank you for that feedback.
Yeah, so what I was gonna talk about at least a little bit is that there's some triggers, right, for us to receive an audit sooner. One of those would be federal funds that would likely trigger a single audit, which we would then have to, or the auditors would have to conduct earlier than our normal kind of schedule over the past couple of years. Is that correct, Kim?
Yes, that's correct. Should the city expend more than $750,000, we would coordinate with city management to ensure that we're performing our single audit timely, so that way we can work with you to meet that deadline.
And so with the CARES Act funding, I'm not sure exactly if we spent that in 2020 or 2021, but that could potentially be a trigger, but also the ARPA funds for 2022 as well. If that happens, that could certainly trigger an earlier audit. Second thing that I want to just talk about briefly is I want to thank the departments that also participated. This is just not a finance department exercise. It also, this audit pertains or belongs to a lot of different departments in the city, making sure that they're providing proper controls over things. So I really want to take the time to thank the IT department, including Kevin Smith for his efforts, as well as the legal department, Bob Sturbank, for their efforts too. And if I'm forgetting any of the other departments, please forgive me. There's likely the Parks and Public Works department involved, especially in terms of utility billing. And so I want to make sure they got a special mention too. But a lot of credit goes to Jerry and Kyla for their efforts over the past couple months. as well as you too, Kim, and the State Auditor's Office for working with us during this time. And I think as what's been echoed by the mayor and as well as Kim is we do appreciate council's continued focus in this area. Please continue focusing on this area. This will only help us grow as an organization over time. We're really looking forward, if we haven't already, really diving into the COSO standards overall and making sure that the risk environment is appropriately assessed and also evaluated, and making sure that we're providing or at least conducting or implementing those internal controls over the entire organization. And we will continue to do that, and we will continue to move forward in terms of implementing some very complex internal controls, especially when we get into the ERP projects that we're actually starting to implement. And so that will certainly assist us in this endeavor as we proceed forward. So thank you.
Hey, Kim, I'm here. I think my audio is working. If sorry, everybody, for my extreme tardiness. I was having trouble getting into the meeting, but Kim, is there anything that I could help answer that hasn't been answered already?
I believe there are some questions about identification related to fraud within our audit. And as far as questions about the level of assurance that we provide, as mentioned, we don't test every single transaction.
Yes, that'd be correct. We provide no level of assurance that there is not fraud going on at the city. In the areas we reviewed, we would say in those areas we didn't see indications of any fraud occurring. So that's one of the caveats, yeah, because we don't audit every transaction or every event that takes place at a city. We can never give that assurance that fraud isn't happening. All you can do is put the best controls in place that you can and really follow those control processes and procedures. And if you do that, it really limits your potential to being exposed to fraud. One of the services, if Kim didn't mention it, that we do have is there is a really good segregation of duties document out on our Center for Government Innovation website, where basically we'll walk you through any process that the city could have and how do you adequately segregate duties depending on your staff size. So it goes all the way up to maybe if you only have 4 people within that department, how would you do that? Which for a city the size of Snoqualmie, I'm sure there are departments where you only have 2 or 3 people that maybe are even bookkeepers or accountant trained at all, where that guide may be very useful. And so that's always the best control against fraud is segregation of duties, have multiple people in there looking at it, periodically rotate people on that task. Things of that sort are where we can help offer guidance to limit that exposure. Yeah, now I'm here. I'm Alex Barrett, everybody. If you haven't met me, I'm the audit manager for Team South King County. I apologize again for my tardiness. Any other questions for us at all? If you are due for, I know I was in for that last question. As soon as you know whether you have over 750,000 in federal expenditures, let us know, because you are correct that we would be in earlier, most likely around July, to get the audit done, so that way we can make the end of September deadline. I know Snoqualmie fell just short of that threshold last year. So my guess is with ARPA, you could be past that threshold when you combine that with the other COVID funding. But again, just let us know on that and we'll get you in the schedule. It's not something that I necessarily need too much headway on. We'll find out in May when you file your Schedule 16 with us, but if you know before then, it's always nice. But even if you don't know until that date, we'll be able to work you into the schedule and get that done. I always guarantee any client that as long as you dedicate the resources on our end, we will get it done. During this pandemic, it's definitely been difficult, I think, for everybody, our office included, of just how to navigate everything remotely and get through things. So those entities that really get us the documents we're asking for can get done a little bit quicker. But again, every entity is affected so differently from this, ourselves included. So just know we're accommodable. We know things don't always go according to plan, as we've all experienced the last 2 years now. And so just let us know if whatever comes up, if you ever have questions, and as soon as you know about that federal funding, and we'll work you into the schedule, and we'll work out a time that works well for you too.
We will certainly do that. Any other questions for the auditors? Okay, seeing none, I'd like to thank the state auditors again, and also our finance group. Job well done. So thank you, and we will adjourn the meeting.
Perfect. Congratulations on the clean audit.